Hello, I'm Kath. We're talking about 21st century learning, and today I'm going to be looking at the topics and subjects that we want to teach our students in the 21st century world. Language itself is not a topic, so we have to find interesting and relevant ways of presenting language to our students. Today my talk is going to be divided into three sections: cross-curricular, cross-cultural and global themes. So let's start off with cross-curricular. When we talk about teaching cross-curricular topics, we're not talking about presenting a language lesson, and we're not talking about teaching a normal subject lesson but just in a different language. We're talking about something different. We're talking about a way for language to be used to learn as well as to communicate. It's a way of teaching new content, and this part is closest to my heart. It's an opportunity for students who shine in other areas to share their expertise. And this is one of the things that I think is really important about cross-curricular topics, is that it appeals to students who perhaps don't think of themselves as language learners. So a student who might feel normally marginalised in the classroom starts to feel included. And there are ways that you can do that. You could invite a student to become an expert for the day on a certain subject. So you could say to one student, I know you're really interested in music. Can you come to the class next week and just be an expert for us on music, and everyone can ask you questions? Or another way that you can cover cross-curricular topics is that you can just set aside 5 minutes at the end of every lesson and ask students to tell you about what else they're learning at school, so that they begin to realise that English isn't just a topic at school in itself, but it's a medium through which they can talk about the other subjects that they're learning. And if possible, if you can collaborate with other teachers at the same learning place, then you can try and cover the same topics, and that will make it seem more relevant to students. And at all times when you're teaching cross-curricular subjects, remember that the focus should always be on communication and content rather than accuracy. So that's the first section, which was cross-curricular, and that's subject in the classroom. Now I'm going to open it out a bit and talk about cross-cultural themes. The internet has brought the whole world into our classroom, and suddenly our students can see everything that's out there. And cheaper travel, video conferencing, Skype calls, all this means that we're more widely travelled and we meet more people from different cultures than ever before. And so that has an effect, because it's no longer acceptable to make cultural mistakes. It's not acceptable to misunderstand other people's cultures, because our students have exposure to that information, so they should be able to remember it. I remember many years ago I was teaching in Japan, and I was absolutely clueless about the culture there. And whenever I had a cold, I would quite happily blow my nose very loudly in the classroom, until it was pointed out to me that that's extremely unacceptable in Japan. That's the kind of mistake that we don't want our students to make. At the same time, when we're talking about different countries and different cultures, I think it's really important to focus on the real people and the real lives. It's very easy to look at celebrities and stars and pop stars and actors and think about them and how they represent their country. But actually, for things to seem relevant to students, I think it's very important that we look at real people living real lives. And in my experience, students are very naturally curious about how other people in other countries live their lives. So it's terribly motivating for them to have that opportunity to find out about other countries and other cultures. Now, I've talked about bringing the world into the classroom, but also we need to take the classroom out into the world. So cross-cultural material is about reflecting on our own culture and how this compares with other cultures. So our students need to learn how to talk about and communicate about our culture. And we can't do this unless we know how we differ. Now we're going to move right out to global themes. What are global themes? Well, I think of these as things that affect our whole world. So things like the environment, global warming, recycling, talking about themes like poverty and wealth, access to clean water, fair trade, charity work, talking about food, so not just talking about the cultural aspects of food, what you eat, what other countries eat, but things like GM crops or vegetarianism or fast food or obesity. These are all global themes that affect everybody in the world. And one other theme that I think is very important is money, consumerism, entrepreneurship, running businesses, economics and money management. So those are all what I would consider to be global themes. And why do we need to teach those? Because by teaching these subjects, we're giving our students a global perspective and we're helping them to see themselves as global citizens. So to recap, when we talk about 21st century themes and topics, I've divided those themes and topics into 3 sections, and I've talked about cross-curricular topics, cross-cultural topics and global topics. And it's very important that you think and try to include all of those topics into your classroom because they help to expand the students' view of the world, they motivate and encourage students, and they support their general school education. Thanks for listening, and come back again to find out more about 21st century learning.